It's the latest play by Brown, who's showing no signs of slowing down in his final term as governor. So Melissa and I asked former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown, who is a good friend of Jerry Brown's, for his take on the governor's next move. Mayor Brown, you just saw Jerry Brown this last week. He's coming off a tremendously successful legislative session. He's basically telling these guys and gals what to do, and they seem to be falling right into line. He's got great poll numbers, according to the latest we've seen. Do you see Jerry Brown retiring to Williams to whack weeds at his ranch?
No way. Let me tell you, I had the great pleasure last week of introducing Jerry Brown, who then introduced Bill Clinton. And it was like old home week. It clearly appeared as if these two old war horses were just looking for a fight, not with each other, but with the rest of us. And it wouldn't surprise me, Phil, one iota, if sometimes between now and exit date for Jerry Brown, he doesn't make some announcement that gets him out of Williams and back into the fray.
Well, doesn't he keep comparing himself to the Roman emperor who said he's going to...
Cincinnatus.
Yes, to Cincinnatus. He's going to retire to his farm.
Roman general,
He actually
right.
said that on Meet the Press, I believe it was, which was, you know, an interesting thing to compare oneself to. But but to your point, I don't think anyone believes he's going to, you know, sort of go gently into that good night. I don't know if he's got a national campaign in front of him, but, you know, if Feinstein doesn't run, maybe Senate.
Well, but not only that, there's no way you show up at a Black Baptist church in September if you're on your way to Williams 6 months, a year from now. No way. And you're there, you're in all of your glory, and you're literally playing wonderful smack with everybody. You're identifying people in the audience and reminding people
Mayor
what
Brown,
they did
what
for
makes a guy like that tick? What makes Jerry Brown tick? What
Same
makes
thing
Bill
that
Clinton?
makes me tick.
What's that?
The Brown family. This is how they work.
The gene pool.
So this is just who you guys are, and you can't envision not doing it.
Phil, there is no 12-step program for politicians, unfortunately. Once you're hooked and once you're in it, you are addicted, and no one has figured out how to cure it. If you don't believe me, ask Bill Clinton.
Public service, right? All about serving your fellow man, right?
You know, it is interesting. People tend to forget that the number one thing you have to do in order to be a successful politician, it's not policy, it's not presence. What you have to be able to do is win a popularity contest. And that has to be one of the most important things that drives you, is to want to be liked and win popularity contests.
I have to say, I spent some time in Washington, D.C., and, you know, there's nothing more depressing than a bar full of former politicians trying to get your attention, trying to have somebody listen to their opinions on things. It's really something.
As Jerry Brown once told me, it was to hell out there, Phil, when I wasn't in office. The phone never rang.
If the Democrats aren't going to approve it, then we're not going to do what they want.
Congress has 6 months to work out a deal on DACA, and there are an estimated 800,000 DACA recipients who could be at risk for deportation if Congress doesn't save the program.
Melissa and I asked former San Francisco Mayor and State Assembly Speaker Willie Brown what he thought about President Trump's, well, is he really dealing with Democrats?
It starts with Donald Trump. It always starts with a guy. And so he will take credit for it, although he will not want credit in most of the jurisdictions where his people are. But he can now come to visit California. He can go back to visit New York. He can do a number of things he couldn't do before he wised up and invited Nancy and Chuck to dinner.
Well, you know, there is a risk here. He still needs, right, Democrats are in the minority. You still need about 25 Republicans to vote for any bill that you want to get passed. You also have to get them through committees and be on the floor to be voted. So you can't just wholesale alienate Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan in this process. So the idea that he's going to Chuck and Nancy at this point, you know, may work on some levels, but you got to be careful not to alienate the Republicans at the same time. And that seems like something he may be at risk of doing.
But Melissa, you are focused on some legislative achievement. That's not where Chuck and Nancy happens to be, nor Trump, and particularly not the 800,000 kids who are affected. It will stay in place as done by Obama until there's a legislative response. And believe me, who cares how long it takes?
That I wanted to ask you about, because she's of the opinion that you could just let it ride. But we have attorney generals from some states saying it's got to end and others saying you can't end it. And that's making its way through the courts. So there is something in the background that could fall or drop the hammer on all this.
Absolutely. Any solution here that doesn't involve Congress is going to end up in court. One way or the other. You are darned if you do and darned if you don't when it comes to this. If he keeps doing it by the Department of Homeland Security fiat, like Obama did, then back in court, back where they started, when Jeff Sessions said, hey, we can't defend this, it's pretty well unconstitutional as far as we're concerned.
Presidential politics, it never ends. By the way, I understand California is changing some of its rules regarding the presidential primary, right?
That's right, that's right. If you can't beat them, change the rules. State lawmakers have voted to move the 2020 presidential primary in California to March. This is in an effort to give the state more influence in choosing the nominees. Now, under current law, the primaries are in June, and in 2016, that meant that California voted after Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton were already the presumptive nominees. Now, this new bill will go to Governor Brown for consideration.